Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Immigrant Faith Stories. I'm your host, Mabel. And today on my show, I have with me Philip. And Philip is a friend, is the husband of my friend Amber. And Amber and I were talking about my show. And I just happened to mention that I'm looking for guests. And she offered her husband, and she told me about him being from London and how, he moved to America. And so I was curious to talk to him. I'm so glad he agreed to do this interview. And so I let him introduce himself to you. So welcome to the show, Philip. I'm so happy that you took out time to talk to us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long have you been in America? Where in England do you come from?
Yes, thank you very much, Mabel. It's great to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I'm originally from North London in England, from a suburb called Enfield. It's actually a borough as well, London Borough of Enfield. And I actually moved over 26 years ago. So Amber and I moved over at the end of 95. We had kind of one of the old-fashioned long-distance romances. I actually met her roommate from college in an IRA bomb scare in the middle of London in Oxford Street. It was her first day in London and she wanted to know what was going on. So we became friends and did a bit of traveling together. And then when she got back to the States, she set my wife and I up as pen pals. She thought we'd be a perfect match. So it was the old days. So no email, no internet really. So it was handwritten letters and phone calls.
Wow, that's such an interesting story, so romantic.
Yeah.
And so you moved to America because of Amber, because you got married?
Yes, it was very interesting. I actually, when we started writing, we fell in love, and she was planning to actually study at Oxford for a semester, studying medieval history, and then that kind of fell through, but I helped her fly over anyway. So she stayed at our house with I still lived with my parents back then. And at the end of the summer, we decided to elope. We decided it was cheaper and easier for everybody, for both families, if we eloped. So the original plan was Amber wanted to stay there and finish her final year of college. She was attending Evangel University. She had a major in journalism and a double minor in English and biblical studies. But quickly we found that her credits would not transfer. So she would almost have to redo 3 years of college to be able to stay there and finish what she intended to do. So even back then, we felt these little prods that God was saying, no, it sounds great to stay here, but I need you to finish what you started. So everything seemed to guide us back here to Springfield, Missouri, where Amber also has her family. So she could go back to Evangel University. We actually lived on campus in the married apartments there for that senior year.
Okay.
And it was quite the experience.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating story.
Yeah.
But in a way, I relate to you because I came from India to America because of, not for work, but because of marriage, because my husband had to come here for work. And so I moved here. So the beginning of, a new phase of life, what do I say, intersected with just my immigrant journey as well.
Yes.
And this is where I started, my home and setting up family and everything happened in America, not in India for me. Yeah, I understand. So I can relate to that experience.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, so whether you were born and raised a Christian when you were in England?
Well, very interesting because things were very different there. And also at that time, I was born in '66, so I grew up, went to school in the late '60s, early '70s. And England is it is considered a Christian nation. We do have a state religion, which is the Church of England, which is, Anglican Protestant movement. But it really, I grew up in a time when it was in kind of infused into everything. You know, at school every day, we had school assemblies, we sang hymns, we said prayers. It was very different to today, you know. But the problem I found with that was, because it was a quote unquote state religion, it was a very passive, or as we said, nominal kind of religion or belief system. There was nothing active about our faith. There was no invitation to know Jesus on a personal level. It really had just become tradition and custom in that, in Britain, you know. So that was very different for me coming over here. You know, I had that, thankfully had that exposure. You know, I did learn about God. You know, we did Bible lessons at school even, and you know, we did go to Sunday school and so on, but it was something that was just not active in my life. It's just like any other subject, you know, I go to school, I learn English, I learn math, I learn Bible. So there was something definitely missing there for me.
Yeah. And did that change when you met Amber and moved here?
Yeah, it was actually very, you know, very strange, because Amber was making a big leap. You know, Amber grew up under the Assemblies of God. You know, her dad had been a pastor. He'd worked for the Assemblies of God most of his life. So for her to go over to England with $150 in her back pocket, you know, and meet this man who she didn't really know had any great background with Christ, you know. I certainly wasn't an atheist, but I also wasn't an active Christian. So what actually happened was, once we had moved back to the US, I was then exposed to a very different kind of Christianity. You know, it was, you know, being immersed in that charismatic church. It was a bit of a culture shock, really. I've joked about this before, but because a lot of English churches are very small and intimate, and then going to my first, it wasn't even really a mega church, but it was like a movie theater to me. And I was joking with my wife saying, when do they bring the popcorn around? You know, it felt like that. And it was a little uncomfortable to start with. It did take me a few months to get, you know, to get the feel for it and understand just basically the format of that kind of church. And, you know, through Amber, through her prayer, through her love and guiding, she didn't push me at all. That was very important to me. But she was always there. You know, her faith was always on display.
Yeah.
You know, God's love was always on display.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months after we'd been back over here, they were having spiritual emphasis week at Evangel University, and Amber was in classes, and I was just at home watching, you know, watching one of the school's channels, and I was just, you know, compelled to pray in the middle of it. And I've said this before, it was almost just like a wave from the Holy Spirit just came over me. It was, you know, that true moment that I felt like I came to Christ. Sometimes it's subtle for people. For me, it was sort of more of an impact. I was changed from that point onwards. You know, it was no longer living with a, you know, a stagnant or dead tradition and custom, you know. It was an active faith started in my life, and, you know, I had fortunate to have an amazing wife that helped me through that, and has been very patient with that journey.
Praise God. I'm surprised and also never surprised at how he reaches out to people exactly at the time that, you know, he's prepared them for it, and how he moves with each individual person is so unique. How he brings them to himself. Now let's talk about, you know, adjusting to a different culture. I think many of us would assume that you as a white person would not have that, you know, a problem, right, fitting in with American society and culture and all those things. So what was your experience like? Was it easy or difficult or somewhere in the middle?
Well, I kind of had the same assumption. I'm a white male from an English speaking country. What trouble would I have fitting in? And I was so wrong about that. I think one of the sad things is that people have this tendency to identify the differences in others. It's very easy to find the differences in others and less easy to recognize the similarities in what we all have in common, and those dreams, desires, and drives that we all have as humans. I found, when I started work, I was working for a pet store chain, and I had faced a lot of, not just criticism, but almost anger from some of the people I worked with. They love to tell me how we beat the English in 1776, and we saved the English in World War II, and they just wanted to put us down, and it was kind of sad, and I didn't sort of come across, I hope I didn't come across as being, sort of pushy or arrogant. I just tried to be myself, and yes, I talk differently. um, but it really did surprise me that I could come to a country that I thought was so similar to my own and just suffer so much.
Yeah.
A little bit of discrimination, prejudice, obviously not as much as some ethnicities would have, but I think that's one of the other things that really shocked me. My very first Thanksgiving, it was about 3 weeks after I came over, and we drove to Louisiana because my brother-in-law was stationed down there, and we were going to go spend Thanksgiving with him. And we just crossed over the border from Missouri to Arkansas. We were about an hour north of the border, and the very first thing we saw was an adopt the highway sign by the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And to me, this just was, to me, it was something you see in Hollywood. You didn't think it's anything that existed or was around anymore. And it was a real sort of shake back into reality that prejudice does exist, and obviously I have it a lot easier than most people, but it's unusual that it's still acceptable in this day and age that people feel the need to discriminate against others, and just the hatred that comes with that.
You're right.
And I've mentioned this before, that my wife and I, we had a couple of bumper stickers on our car. We had the British flag and the Stars and Stripes, and we were proud of our heritage. So we had 2 little bumper stickers, and a couple of times we had pickup trucks try to run us off the road, especially around 4th of July, because, they just felt this inbuilt sort of hatred towards someone of a different culture.
Yeah,
It
I
was
think that's
strange.
terrible. Yeah, that is terrible, because just the minute someone's different, you just want to make them, I don't know, tell them that you don't belong in some way.
Exactly. And I had it so easy. I mean, like I say, a white male speaking English, I should have no problem at all. And just, there's always going to be those people out there that are going to look for the differences, that maybe feel threatened by the differences. Maybe people feel threatened because I speak differently to them. I came across it, and somebody actually said that to me. I never thought of that. I don't consider myself as a super intelligent person, but they said, "You sound so intelligent, I could listen to you all day." And maybe it is. Maybe that comes across as threatening, and sometimes that also comes across as a little bit arrogant and rude. I was told at my work, because I work at a professional photo lab. I've worked there for 24 years, and I do a lot of technical support and customer service, as well as other things. And somebody got offended. One of the customers got offended about the way I was talking, and I was a little taken back. My supervisor said, "He wasn't being rude. He's just British." And I thought, oh my goodness, what does that mean? But I kind of get it now. I've had people say, "Well, yeah, you with your accent," and it's strange. I mean, even just about 3 years ago, I had a customer that called us by mistake, and they called our company instead of another one, and I told them, "Sorry, I can't help you." And even like 3 years ago, they told me Oh, you and your your big accent. Why don't you just go back
Mm.
where you came from?
Oh,
And that was
wow.
lucky I have really good supervisor. You know, if we are threatened or have people being rude, we're allowed to just hang up on them. So,
Wow.
but even
So,
recently, you know, that's still a thing.
yeah, yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this. How does your faith, your relationship with God, help you deal with those kind of situations? How do you respond differently, like say from someone who doesn't have that relationship with God?
I think it's not a coincidence that, you know, I came to Christ before I had to face a lot of that. I don't know how I would have faced it before. I think anger would have taken over me. And I think that's the big difference.
Mm,
Um, when your life is covered in the grace of God, if you're only here by the grace of God, that grace, forgiveness, and love is just something you show to others.
amen. Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I try to live for each day. Is just, you know, I try to show mercy, grace, love, compassion, and forgiveness in whatever I do. And it is hard some days. You know, some days I still get annoyed with people. You know, somebody's doing something that not offends me, but something that's rude or something that is detrimental to me, and I want to immediately jump and into my own defense. And that's
Mhm.
a very difficult thing to control in times. But you know, and I do go back to, you know, two great moments in the Bible when Jesus was facing accusations and persecution, and also when Joseph was. And in
Mhm.
both times, you know, they could have defended themselves, but they just stood there. They knew God was bigger than the situation they were
Yeah.
in. God was,
Yeah.
you know, it's all about God. He's the audience that we are playing to. It's
Yeah.
not the others.
Amen.
We're um, not here to impress other people. We're not here to placate them or appease them. We're here for God. We're here for God's work. And
Yeah.
I have to remind myself that, you know, when I do
Yeah.
feel myself getting really
Amen.
urged, as something I really,
Yeah.
really try to focus on.
Um, what other parts of the culture were not difficult, but did take time for you to adjust? Was there,
Actually, quite a bit. Again, I was very misled by what I thought life would be like here, and especially in the Midwest. I think if I'd gone from a big city, you know, to another big city, some things would have seemed easier. Um, just coming to a town like Springfield. I mean, Springfield's a good size. I think it's about 300,000 people now,
Mhm.
but that was the population of the borough I came from. Um, and I always joke with people here: if you can drive anywhere in town in 20 minutes, you're not living in the city. You know, when you take 2 hours to get to work, you're in the city. You
Yeah.
know, we can agree. But yeah, there are a lot of little things. You know, whether it's from simple, silly things like food being different. I mean, um, growing up in London, you know, a very large cosmopolitan city, I was used to so much choice in foods. You know, I just everything. You know, the area we lived in, there was a large Italian community, large Turkish Cypriot community, and then we also had a large Indian and Pakistani community, and that's why
Mhm.
I grew up. You know, as a family, we always loved Indian food, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that's something I passed on to my children. It's just a love for food of
Yeah.
other cultures and nations, and that's been great
Yeah.
to pass that on. But even other silly little things, I always joke about this as well. That the light switches work the wrong direction here. Like at
Yeah.
home, you flick them down
Yeah.
to turn them on. Here, you've got to
Mhm.
flick them up.
Yep. Yep.
The hot and cold taps are the wrong way around, uh, and none of this stuff matters by itself, but it really does
Mhm.
get to you after a while. You start to feel an alien. You start to lose identity in yourself. Like, who am I? It's already difficult because you're coming into a new area, new culture with, you know, you've left your family and friends behind, and um, it was very difficult
Mhm.
making friends. And even
Yeah.
today, a lot of my friends are my wife's friends. You know, I have a few friends of my own, thankfully. Um, but that's been hard, you know, trying
Yeah. Yeah.
to adapt to. And then I think one of the other biggest hurdles I had here is I am legally blind, which you
Okay.
might be able to tell by the way I can't always look at the camera. Um, in London, that wasn't a big deal. You know, we had the underground trains, overground trains, buses, had such a great transportation system. I could be fully independent as someone, you know, with visual impairment. Come into a small town like Springfield. I mean, we've got a very small bus service, doesn't run very late, doesn't run to very many places. You're lucky to find sidewalks anywhere here. You know, you're walking in the ditch most of the time. So that was also a change for me.
Mhm.
And also for the people that saw me walk in, you know, in the UK, a lot of people walk everywhere. You know, I walked miles every day just for the fun of it. And here I
Yeah.
would be walking down the side of the road to get to work. And the
Yeah.
number of people that stopped and asked me if I'm okay, do I need a ride?
Yeah.
I made a few friends that way though. People giving me a ride to work. So
Yeah, I remember one of the things, within a year of us moving here, we had met with an accident. So that was for
oh,
us a very sudden introduction to the American healthcare system, which we'd never
mhm,
understood, until
yeah,
that point. I was like, okay, we have insurance. I didn't know what that
yeah,
meant. I didn't understand how it worked, but not until that accident, we just had to learn a whole new way of just taking care of ourselves, and everything was so different.
absolutely, absolutely. And that took a lot of getting used to. And a lot of people ask me that, you know, aren't you glad you don't have socialized medicine anymore? And I'm like, not really. It really does affect. I think it really affects the health of a nation, not just physical health, but the you know the emotional health of a nation as well. Because it was so nice, you know, when you have socialized medicine, it's not what everybody thinks. What it means is if you get sick, which is something I think we've all dealt with over the last couple of years, that possibility, you can go see a doctor for free.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can get your treatment very cheaply. You know, we just have a single flat rate for all prescriptions. And then you have sick pay, so you can take time off work.
Mm.
So you have that encouragement to feel better, not to spread things to other people.
Yeah.
Um, Very different here. And I quickly learned how many people drag themselves to work because they couldn't afford to take time off.
Mm.
They couldn't afford to see a doctor. They couldn't
Yeah.
afford their medications. And I think it's just a shame that the American culture is just caught up in that we're okay with that we have, you know, not just elderly, but just people who are on the poverty line that can't afford to get treatment, that can't afford to be sick, that have to take, you know, not only go to work when they don't feel good, but, you know, might take in like spread
Yeah.
infections around in workplaces.
True.
Um,
And
it,
from our
yeah,
just this conversation,
yeah,
I feel like when you move to a foreign country, there's so many things that you just have to unlearn and learn and adjust to, that
yeah,
they all kind of add up to the stress, which we don't even realize
absolutely.
unless we actually sit and take a stock. Sometimes I feel I should write down all the things that have changed, and I had to learn new ways of doing things and things like that. And
No,
that's
I
going to be a
think
long
I
list.
think you've hit it on the head there. It is this cumulative stress, and I really did let it get to me after a while. Um, I think I was kind of a little bit of a fearful person anyway when I moved over here. I think from my parents, you know, they were always very careful about everything, and I was always fearful of messing up. You know, I wanted to make sure I did everything properly. And when I came over here, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I'm in charge of my own life, but that was terrifying to me. You know, I'm responsible for myself. Um, you know, I've got to deal with the cost of health insurance. I've got to deal with the cost of food. I've got to learn new things, like you say. I've got to learn that sales tax isn't added into the price of products here like it is back home. So you've got to do the mental math in your head to make sure you've got enough to cover the sales tax. And the tax system is very different. You know, we didn't file, unless you were a business owner, you didn't file taxes every year back in the UK. Just
Hmm.
something you paid and you were done with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just everyday
Yeah.
little things like that. And I think it is something that maybe we should all take a class on. You know, when we move here,
I
is
know.
these are the things you might find you
Yeah.
struggle with, because if you let them all get to you, it can build
Yeah.
up. And
I feel like half of the stress is not gone, but the battle is won if you're just even aware of it. And it took me many years to just be aware of all that and to have the
exactly.
vocabulary to express what I had been feeling.
Yeah.
So, Philip, let's talk about your family. You have three children. Yeah.
Yes,
And
we have three children. Yeah, three daughters.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
was it important for you that they know their British heritage or that part of their identity?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where, grandparents helped. My father seemed to send packages over every week with British food, books, magazines, newspapers, toys, just things that were to remind us of, things that I grew up with, so I could share those with my children.
Yeah.
Because they were already immersed in the American culture, so they were very up to date with that. But it was great that they loved that. They really enjoyed getting those packages and getting something new, a little different that their friends don't have. And thankfully my children have made, or at least my eldest two have made a lot of trips back to the UK. We got to a point where we're going every couple of years. So they learned it, they enjoyed being in another country. They feel comfortable traveling, and I think they've definitely caught the travel bug. I know they'd love to go different places, and
Yeah.
they would travel the world given the chance.
That's nice.
But,
I love the pictures and the updates that your wife posts on Facebook about the kids and all the fun things they do.
yeah,
So nice.
yeah. and see for me, that's another thing that's a little bit different, because I'm then going, I've got to we did have a great bond, my wife and I. We bonded over Monty Python sketches. We always joke about that, but it did. We found very quickly there were a lot of cultural differences, things that she grew up with. She was talking about a TV show as a kid that I had never seen, and vice versa. Also, a little bit of an age gap. I don't know why this ever happened, but it just happened by chance. My father was 7 years older than my mother. I'm 7 years older than Amber, and my brother was 7 years older than his wife.
Ah.
Not planned. It just happened that way. But so I've got a slight age difference there, plus the cultural one. So sometimes I think my wife just looks at me, just smiles and carries on, and I could tell that maybe it's didn't quite get me, but
Yeah.
she's amazing.
Praise God. I mean, but still, God
Yeah.
has brought you both together and used you as a couple
Absolutely.
and as a family to serve Him, whether
Yes,
individually or
absolutely.
together or in your church. So before I let you go, I have one last question.
Yes.
What would be your advice to someone who's just recently become an immigrant or a foreigner? What would you say to them? Any words of wisdom or encouragement?
Expect change. Don't expect it to be the same as what you came from.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you won't find those little treats and happy things that you grew up with, but it's also enjoy the experience, enjoy learning something new, enjoy and learning the new culture. And I think that's what I did wrong for a long time, is I was complain about couldn't find food that I liked. I complained that I couldn't find TV shows I liked, or I couldn't go to the theater like I used to in London. But I've really learned to, as different as Springfield is to London, I've really learned to love the area, love the people, and understand them. Yeah. And I am different to a lot of them, but I love them just as much, because I just have learned to appreciate that life's not about holding on to where you came from. It's learning from that, and just embracing the culture and the land that you're in. And it's going to be scary, and it's going to be different, and sometimes it's going to be difficult. And the biggest lesson for me was just relinquish all control to God. I think all those years I struggled and strived to control the world around me and conform it to something that it wasn't. It wasn't until I finally, gave that control to God and just said, I trust you. I know you're looking out for the best of me. He's seen us through so many crazy things. He's always there, whether it's the big things or the small things. And I really don't know if I would have lasted. I know I wouldn't have lasted, without that. If I'd come over here with without that opportunity to build a strong and active faith, I don't know. I think the stress would have driven me crazy, you know, but it's, I'm very blessed, you know, make new friends all the time, you know, and it's, trust God with the path, because he's just, I never dreamt I would be here, you know. When I was in school, I thought, well, I'll probably be working in some factory and, you know, living in a small house and probably live in the same street I grew up on. And I sometimes have to you know, pinch myself because I can't believe I'm living in a whole different country, you know, and I've got this amazing family, amazing home, amazing friends, and then the most amazing of God's two. Just
can be so grateful to God, just having that, you know, appreciation and gratitude.
It is.
Wise words, Philip, wise words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Mabel. It's been great, and really appreciate meeting you and making new friends. And thank you so much.
I hope that I can meet your family someday, or, you know, if you ever come down to San Jose. This area is so diverse, and we have.
I was there a couple of years ago. The company I work for, their parent company is based in Scotts Valley. So I flew into San Jose, you know, it's about 45 minutes drive, and we were staying in, I think it was Capitola we were staying in. So I learned, you know, got to know Santa Cruz as well. But yes, we'll have to go that way. I'd love Amber and the girls to see that part of the country, because it's absolutely stunning. You know, I could just,
it is.
I could just drive those roads through the mountains and just stare at the trees. Forever. Just wow.
Yeah. We're blessed to live here, and, you know, even though this is still new to me, we moved from LA, but I'm learning to appreciate, and I felt like God speaking to you, because I've been complaining about this place. I miss LA, and you know, people ask me, do you like San Jose? I mean, there are parts to it that I like, and I'm still adjusting, but I have to stop complaining, start appreciating. So thank you so much for talking with me.
You're very welcome. Very
pleasure.
Welcome,
thank you.
Thank you.